Great glasses, Hannah. Awesome. So, hey everybody, welcome to CKA Maze. Tonight's guest has been a prime example for how far grit and hard work can take you. Having to confront mental health issues head on from an early age, she had a difficult start to her education. Add on to the weight of losing a sibling and struggling with teen pregnancy, she found herself not being able to complete a traditional high school experience. With a GED and a few skills to communicate her value in the job market, she found herself enrolling into pre-hired to acquire a skill set and make a decent living quickly. Ultimately, obtaining a remote sales role with a company right after graduation. Now she helps pre-hired with their strategic partnerships and is often asked to speak as an advocate for others that resonate with her story. Please turn your cameras on, unmute yourselves, and help me in welcoming one of Pre-Hired's partnership managers and one of their graduates, Hannah Burgess. Welcome, Hannah.
Hi.
Great. So thank you so much for coming on. I'd definitely love to start off with your tenacity and just self-belief and just refusal to settle. Why is it important for people to pass from a place?
Sorry, you cut out a little bit there. Still a little bit. Give him just a second.
Can you hear me? Hey, can you hear us? Can anyone else hear me? Am I good here?
Text challenges.
If people can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Okay.
9.
I think we're good. Can you hear me?
Little bit.
All right, so we might be a little bit having some technical difficulties here.
Maybe Melvin, you can put the questions in there or just go to audio.
Let's see. So is my connection's okay though?
You seem fine here, Hannah. So
Okay, just making sure.
I'm thinking it might be Melvin, but if you want, I'm not sure what the format is. Sonny, do you have any questions you want to start with, or we want to see if Melvin wants to jump in?
Let's wait and see if he can get back on in the next minute, though. Otherwise, we can improvise and see who we can help. I mean, Hannah, did you want to give more of an introduction about how you got inspired to get into sales?
Yeah.
You had a cool story about that.
Yeah. So actually, I just knew that I was nannying, and that's what I was doing just to get by. It was not intended to be my career whatsoever. I love children. I don't love making $20 an hour only for the rest of my life. So I knew that that was not going to be great for me. So a family that I nannied for, both of the parents worked in sales. My aunt worked in sales, business to business sales. And I saw that there was opportunity there. My aunt always told me I would be great at it. And the main thing was like, I always was like, okay, you're telling me I'd be great at sales, like you're selling me, whatever. And then one day she was like, oh yeah, it's just great because you can do it without a college degree. And I thought she had a degree all that time. And I was like, wait a minute, this woman has like an amazing life. She's got this big, gorgeous house, drives nice cars. And I was like, you did all that without a degree? And that was when it like went off like a light bulb. And I just started researching what sales had to offer. And I knew that software was the path I wanted to go. So I started with researching at that point. And it looks like Melvin is back.
Yeah, apologies about that. Apparently, I think I just had really rough internet there, but were, what were you able to catch from the past, I guess, couple of minutes there?
Well, I wanted to let you finish asking your question. So we kind of jumped into just me talking about how I found software sales as my career path.
Yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, let's keep diving a little bit deeper into that. So what would you, before we kind of move forward with this, some people might not know what tech sales really entails or what that might mean for people. Do you mind just giving a quick little overview of what someone can expect within a tech sales role and the type of skills that you would also be required to kind of pick up?
Yeah, totally. So the reason I was always kind of turned off by sales was I was thinking, you know, what everyone thinks, like car salesmen. You think like even scammy telemarketers and things like that. But really, when I looked into it more, I discovered that there's, in business to business sales, especially, there's like an entirely different world of sales where, and this was something that appealed to me. You have a lot of really great conversations, lots of phone calls, email, in terms of day-to-day conversations like we're having on Zoom right now. And getting to talk to people is, I mean, like the big thing. You talk to a lot of people. It isn't always positive interactions. Sometimes, you know, things don't go as expected. But overall, I was really excited to get to talk to people because while having an in-home daycare and nannying, I was surrounded by children all day. I felt like when other adults, I would, you know, the parents would come pick up or I'd come visit my mom and I would like talk her ear off because I hadn't seen another adult in days. So talking to people a lot, using multiple channels to do so is a huge part of it.
So when some people are considering, obviously, like tech is growing and software is becoming more and more a part of every industry, and for the most part, a lot of the narrative has been you have to go into a technical role like software engineering or design or data science of sorts. What can people kind of look within themselves to know whether or not, you know, sales is something a little bit more aligned with their interests?
So, yeah, you definitely don't need to do all of that to get into a sales role. You were talking earlier when you were starting to ask me a question before cutting out, and you were talking about like grit and tenacity. Those are definitely things that you should have if you're interested in sales. Skills wise, really good time management, organization, communication skills, things like that. It doesn't all have to be technical. And the great thing about pre-hired is that pre-hired is assessing you for those softer skills in the interview and application process. So we're looking at things like attitude, aptitude, ambition, coachability is huge. And then in terms of the like technical skills of sales, not coding, but using like the tech stack, that's kind of what we're teaching. So we're teaching you the things that are teachable, but before that we're assessing for things that you kind of just have to have.
Yeah, and when you first came across pre-hired, were there other sorts of boot camps that you were also considering?
I looked at others, but I didn't even, like, I don't even know which ones I looked at this point, because taking a look at them, like, I don't remember the names because right. I could very clearly see just by looking at their web pages that they weren't a fit for me. Like needing to quit my day job for 3 months in order to go work in person for a company to get the relevant skills and training. I couldn't do that. Like I had to pay my bills. So I also couldn't pay for childcare while doing an unpaid internship or even like a very low paid internship. So I loved pre-hired because I could still do my day job and also do the training.
Yeah, so it sounds like pre-hired was very flexible with the schedule that you were kind of looking for.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what is the application process kind of like? Do you mind walking people through that?
Yeah. So it has changed in the time since I applied to pre-hired. So I think there might be an extra step in terms of a quick assessment, but I know we're doing an application where you apply on the website. You are booking an information session interview, and that's usually about 45 minutes long. And so that's where you're kind of being assessed for things I mentioned earlier, the attitude, aptitude, ambition. And all in all, it takes just a couple of days usually from the time you apply to enrollment. Very quick.
Now, as you are now a staff member of Pre-Hire, do you also kind of look into the applications? Like, do you kind of interview people as well? If you do, like, what sorts of things does Pre-Hire like kind of dialed down into within their applicants? Like, what are they looking for?
Well, I actually did admissions for just a very short period of time, like 6 or 8 weeks when I first joined Pre-Hired, and there ended up being more of a need for the partnerships team, and that's how I ended up on the partnerships team. But I did start as an admissions advisor, and I think really a lot of the questions being asked in the admissions interview, those things that I mentioned that are being assessed for earlier, are you giving real life examples to prove that you kind of have those soft skills. So one that I always really liked while doing those interviews was, tell me about a time that you disagreed with feedback from your manager. And I got a really wide range of answers to that question, but a lot of the time, the people who ended up working well with us were the people, they would look kind of confused and they'd go, well, I never disagreed with my manager. And I said, well, maybe you weren't vocal about it. But that tells me that, and it's not good to bottle things in, but you were at least somewhat civil, because I've gotten answers where people are like, well, I just cussed my boss out. And that's what you don't want to hear. And it's such a minor thing, but obviously it's not something you want to do at work.
Yeah, that could probably be applied to all sorts of contexts. But yeah, so what about like the first couple of weeks? Like how does Pre-Hired kind of help you ease into that program? Obviously it's a boot camp, it's supposed to be kind of intense. Do you mind describing that experience?
Sure. So it's really, really fast paced because it is such a condensed, it's a short period of time to learn a lot of stuff. So first couple of weeks, definitely, I remember just getting to meet with my mentor, and luckily I'm pretty independent, and I like to, I did pretty well at self-pacing myself in the program. I jumped right into the video modules, and by the time I met my mentor a couple days into the program, he was like, you're just, you're blowing this out of the water, like you're moving fast. And I felt like I was learning a lot really quickly. So really, yeah, just jumping into those video modules and getting to meet your mentor is how you ease into it. And then your mentor gives you the breakdown of what you're going to do in the next few weeks.
Now with sales, there's actually a lot of soft skills, like you mentioned, that are pretty crucial, especially when you're talking to people all the time. That kind of translates over to the job search and job hunt process as well. What about like Pre-Hired's curriculum, or do they kind of focus in on that career or job hunting, skill set development? Because it's kind of different from sales, but what do they do on that part?
Yeah, so the skills that you learn to be an SDR are directly applied to your career search. So you're taking the tech stack that you've learned, the cold calling skills, and email copywriting, things like that, and you are treating your job search process like the sales process. So you're emailing sales managers, you're calling them, you're making them personalized videos, and trying to score an interview with them and ultimately a job.
Yeah, so for the folks that might not know what a sales process looks like, what does that look like?
Well, that varies by company, and a lot of people have a lot of very different opinions on it based off of their methodology. but it usually involves the sales process involves the steps that you're taking to try to get from point A to point B. So like an SDR, in most cases, sometimes they'll be full cycle, but in most cases they are trying to book a meeting or a demo for an account executive. So they're taking a cadence of emails, calls, social media, personalized videos, things like that, to reach out, usually outbound cold communication, trying to get a demo or a meeting.
Yeah, so for the people that are on this call, reminder that Hannah and both Suni and I think there's Caleb on the call are here as resources for you all for the next hour. I highly do recommend you go ahead and start asking questions, dropping them in the chat. There's definitely a lot that they're able to answer here. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand and drop it in the chat now. If not, we can kind of start diving a little deeper into certain things that maybe Hannah wants to talk about in particular. Okay, so it looks like we don't have current questions at the moment, but yeah, so one thing, especially from your background, right, and I think you mentioned from even pre-hired stand, that they kind of look to you as kind of like this lighthouse for, you know, people that kind of come from similar backgrounds where they've had to overcome some certain struggles. How is that directly applicable to like the sales process, or even just, you know, trying to progress and grow as like an individual within your own career?
So yeah, given my background being very, very, very different from most people, it's given me opportunities to try to connect with people who also have very different backgrounds and try to encourage them to change their lives. And that's why I like being a part of Pre-Hired. So I guess the way that the background that I have, or someone who has kind of a challenging past like I do, the way that that transfers into sales is that what I've seen is people who have had difficult backgrounds, it comes with a lot of grit, and it comes with just a work ethic that is like no other. So I was working 55 hours a week, making $3 an hour doing childcare. And I can tell you that the SDR role is hard. A lot of fresh college graduates, they struggle in the role because there's not many things like it. But someone who has worked almost 60 hours a week, barely paying their bills, and has had to pick up side gigs left and right, that's the kind of person that's going to be really successful, because they'll stop at nothing to be successful.
Yeah, I definitely feel like a lot of the community, at least that come to Career Karma, that's what they resonate with as well. And it's always really great to know that even within like a sales role or the sales career, right, that the grit and tenacity, as long as you like keep working hard and being persistent with that, then you can actually move forward and in an effective way. And there's actually this, maybe you can share some insight into this, because a lot of people don't actually know that you can actually make just as much money as an engineer, typical, you know, designer, data scientist. Do you mind kind of, you know, talking a little bit about what you know of the job market and what people can kind of expect from a sales role?
Sure. So in terms of compensation for SDRs, first year tends to be like at minimum, like a 40K base salary with a 60,000 OTE. However, that's like the market rate. And I've seen a lot higher. So the first job that I accepted out of Pre-Hired, I work with Pre-Hired now, but before I worked with a company called Re&B, and my OTE was 78,000. So another thing that I would really like to share, in the last few months, we have gotten a lot of people asking, a lot of people probably don't know what OTE is. That's your overall earnings with your base and your commission that you make if you are meeting your quota. So over the last few months, a lot of people asking about what the job market itself looks like and what the opportunities are within tech sales because of COVID. And I'll say that, like, we've seen, I'm looking at job listings all day because I'm reaching out to hiring managers to form partnerships with them with pre-hired. So I'm looking at job listings for tech SDRs every day. And every day I go click within the past 24 hours, and there are anywhere from like 400 to 900 new tech SDR jobs in the United States in a 24-hour period, which is amazing to me given everything going on.
Yeah, and how's it been looking like for folks, especially, well, now that technology, it's kind of been safe within this bubble of like how COVID's been impacting things. So do you foresee, sales roles growing as these technology companies are growing?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all of that.
No worries. Is my internet like kind of cutting off again a little bit here?
I got distracted. I'm being completely honest. I'm sorry. I have messages
No worries.
in the chat.
No, yeah, absolutely no worries. So how about I think Violet has a question here on how to break down quotas and work in SaaS.
How quotas work in SaaS. So I mentioned earlier that SDRs are booking meetings or demos for AEs, that your quota typically in an SDR role is going to be based on those meetings booked. So anywhere from, if you're selling like large enterprise, I've heard as little as you need to book 5 meetings or demos in a whole quarter in 3 months. Or I've heard with a shorter sales cycle, companies who have their reps booking 15 to 20 meetings, and that's how your commission is broken down. So if you're meeting those 20 demos booked, you get paid a certain dollar amount, and that adds up to your OTE. That's how they're calculating the on-target earnings in your commission.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Violet, for that question. If we have any more questions, please feel free to continue unmuting yourselves, dropping them in the chat. Great. Okay, so another, just I guess in terms of general well-being for people, coming from kind of like beginnings where a lot of people would probably write you off, what sorts of things did you have to tell yourself in order to kind of give you that self-confidence of like moving forward and wanting to pursue bigger, better, greater things?
Are you speaking in terms of like when I first started in sales, or when I was interested in starting in sales, or just in general?
Well, I think in general, but I think both in particular, like if you could explain both, that would be great too.
Sure. So I honestly, in my personal life, I don't think I've ever had anyone doubt me, which is, I mean, maybe not to my face. Nobody's ever been like, I don't believe in you. So I had a lot of support being a teen mom because my mom was a teen mom, and my mom ended up having 7 kids and then 1 adopted. So she has 8 kids. She was a teen mom. She has a great career. She makes great money. So she found out I was pregnant my senior year of high school, and she was like, you're fine. Like, you're not going to let that stop you. And she was right. But when I got into sales, my confidence was like, low. It was low. I knew I didn't know what I was doing necessarily. Like, I was the new person, and expectations are high. And it's like, you get that high of a booked demo, but you have to book another one before the high even wears off. So it's like, you have to keep going and going and going. And you want to take a minute and celebrate, but you don't have time because you have to keep doing outreach. So the only time I've felt really discouraged by other people is while cold calling, to be quite frank. It isn't always the most fun thing. Sometimes people don't love getting a cold call. And at first I'd say I was a little sensitive, and now like I had one today that wasn't fantastic and I laughed about it.
Yeah, that definitely seems to definitely play a little bit of like it's kind of like a mental gymnastics of sorts. How do people like you know, cope with that? Like, what do you advise folks if they're, you know, interested in kind of pursuing this career?
Yeah, so first off, you need to be someone already. I had to grow a little bit in that department, but you need to be someone already who can handle laughing at yourself or maintaining your composure if you're, you know, having a not so good moment or interaction with someone, and being able to take rejection. I think everyone thinks like, oh yeah, like I can be told no, but the way some people go about telling you no, like I am being honest, it can be the rejection can be hard. And I like to warn people considering going into sales about that, because I never thought that it could impact me emotionally, but there have been times like I put down the phone for the whole day after having a bad interaction and I said like, I'm done right now. I'm like taking a break. But if you are someone who is very mentally strong and you can eventually get past that, like now it's just like whatever, and I just keep going. You like if you think you can grow past that, that's being able to take rejection in the long run. It's about the long game. It's not about like it might be hard sometimes, but the long game is what's important.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a lot of emotional intelligence and just being able to handle that. How does pre-hired, I'm curious to know, do they kind of help you with like that process of getting to that point?
Yeah. So your mentor who practices cold calling with you in your weekly sessions, and you also do like a practice cold call that's recorded. You get to like watch over it. You get to try it a couple times, even if there's things that you need to fix. And so your mentor is there to gently give you feedback. So maybe you don't, so you do a good job and you don't really screw up as much, and you decrease your chances of having someone get really mad at you, because if you have really, really good outreach, most of the time, if it's great quality, people are not going to get mad at you.
Yeah. And I think Violet has a question about the career. So what her question is a little bit more specific towards SDR. Like, how long does it take for someone from an SDR role to move up to a customer success manager role? But could you also kind of break down the typical career trajectories or like the path of growing within sales, and what kind of paths people can typically expect?
Yeah. So it mostly will go, I know you can grow into other roles that you choose to, but typically it will go SDR to account executive. So we mentioned earlier, the account executive is the one closing the deals that you are booking. So SDR, account executive, and it's a 2-year average for SDRs. Typically, I've seen people get promoted really, really quickly, like 6-9 months. It depends on the company you go to work for, how big they are and how quickly they're growing. And usually after the AE role, I've seen people go into management roles, customer success, like you mentioned. There's another one that I'm blanking on right now. Oh, like I guess that's kind of the same thing. Account management, things like that, things that kind of parallel with sales or are another like type of sale. So those things usually, recruiting, that's another one. So a lot of that happens I've seen people do it within like 5 years, be able to kind of move up roles.
Now, is the SDR like the first thing that people typically just jump into?
Yeah, I would say that's typically the point of entry for sure.
Great. So I think, okay, yeah, awesome. Thank you, Violet, for great questions this event so far. I definitely, again, will implore people to continue asking these questions. And as a wealth of knowledge, and so is a couple of the folks on Prehired's team that are in the chat. Now, Hannah, there were a couple of things that you learned that you probably couldn't have learned on a self, way of learning sales. Why do you think pre-hired in particular, played a crucial role in you like getting that next job? Like, what about pre-hired really made you just be like, that was?
Yeah, I felt like I told you I had a great support system. I didn't do great in like a traditional school setting. I was in alternative school, but what I was successful at always really boiled down to what I wanted to be successful at. So I knew like if I decided I wanted to do software sales, I could. I was nervous. I didn't know how good I could do at software sales, but I knew like if someone else can, like if my aunt without a college degree when she was 19 could get into a software sales role, like I could do it. So the only thing was that I was Googling job listings because my aunt told me where to start. She said, start an SDR role. And I was reading all of the things, like they were naming tech stack that you needed to use for the role. And I was like, I don't even know what any of that means. And I didn't realize they were like, I was so far off from where I needed to be to get into software sales. I didn't even realize, like, let's say it said HubSpot, but you need to be able to use HubSpot for this job. I wouldn't have known what that even was, let alone how to use it. So pre-hired definitely gave me those skills. I also had never made a cold call in my life or used Zoom or anything like that. So I had a lot to learn.
Yeah, I'm interested. So for the training at pre-hired, did they have you like selling a fake product or like working for companies? How did that look?
So, didn't necessarily spend like a majority of the program doing that, but on mock cold calls and things like that, I was pretending to sell different like CRM software with my mentor just because that was what we chose to use.
Now, can you define the tech stack also? I see that Josh kind of defined it there, but what sorts of software tools can people be expected? Like what would be the industry norms? What did you learn at pre-hired?
Yeah, so tech stack, that's the technology that you're going to be using while doing sales. I mentioned that you definitely don't know, you don't have to know how to like code or anything like that, but you do need to have some skills in that area of being able to navigate customer relationship management tools. You need to just the tools that you're using to do your job, automation, engagement. So industry standard, from what I've seen, a lot of companies are using Salesforce, which does a whole bunch of things for sales. A lot of companies, that's kind of their sole tool that they're using. And some of them are using HubSpot. Some of them are using really small company CRMs or lead generation tools. And so it does vary a little bit, but pre-hired covers over 20 different tools. So you'll get a taste for all different kinds of tools that you would be using in the role.
Now, are the tools vastly different? Or if you learn a couple of them, you might be able to navigate a couple of the others?
Yeah, totally not different. Like I had to use one that I hadn't heard of before at my last company. It was a really small company. I don't think they had much awareness for them. Like I had never even heard of it, the CRM. And really, once you know the language of sales, the vocabulary, like if you know what prospects are or leads, and you know what your contacts in your companies or accounts are going to be, you can pretty much find your way around most CRMs.
Great. Now, Hannah, so did you also have a couple of other things from your bootcamp experience that you feel some folks might not really think about when they're first joining like a program like pre-hired? Maybe, it sounds so enticing to go through a program that's maybe 6 to a couple of weeks, right, to a couple of months. What was kind of like the biggest thing that you had to readjust as you were kind of getting into the boot camp experience?
That is a hard question. Biggest thing I had to readjust. For me, it was really personal. It was not, I've always been really passionate about, even when I struggled in school, I liked to read a lot of books and listen to a lot of podcasts and just consume things to try to learn. And so it was a lot of new information, but I'm very comfortable learning in a self-paced and online environment. That's always been my thing. I've done online school since I was, 12. So that was totally fine with me. I did feel nervous at times, can I really do this? But for me, the personal thing was really I had kept my kids with me at work because I had an in-home daycare and I nannied for their entire lives. And so knowing that I was going to have to get a job at the end of the program and send them to daycare, I thought I was dragging my feet. To me, I felt like I was kind of moving slowly through the program, but my mentor says I did a really great job actually. And I didn't realize I finished a couple weeks early. I thought it had been 6 weeks, but it had been 4 because I just was I guess just overwhelmed with new information.
Yeah, that's great. And so I think Sarah had a question here about what you would actually learn in the program, what the content is. Do you mind going through the first couple of weeks into the full range of what you kind of learn and in what order while you're at pre-hired?
Yeah. So starts with, I mentioned earlier, the video modules. And in those, you're going through all the different tools, talking about outreach, setting up your tech stack, because getting everything integrated, your email with your calendar and your calendar with your CRM and things like that. It walks through every step of the way. There's no room for confusion there. And talking about how to ask for a meeting, because sometimes you'll have a prospect that's interested, but they'll dance around it. You got to ask for the meeting. Every little detail is covered in those video modules. And then you're meeting with your mentor weekly this whole time. And then at the end, you're figuring out how to set up your tools for your career search process. And you're getting started on your first time really acting in the SDR role. And you're also, in terms of reaching out for jobs, acting in the SDR role. And your mentor also meets with you throughout that career search process. You have a connector who's your second mentor for your job, and they're helping you strategize and find ways to be creative in your outreach so that you stand out.
Yeah, it sounds like mentorship is probably a pretty big thing at pre-hire. Do you mind going a little bit deeper into what that interaction looks like, how often you meet with your mentor, what their role kind of is, and how that relationship looks as you continue on in the program?
Yeah, so your mentor's role really is to make sure that you are kind of hitting your numbers in the program like a manager would when you're on the job in sales. So they're keeping track of how far along you are in the program, answering your questions that you might have if you're getting stuck on anything. You're meeting with them typically once a week, but that's at minimum. If you need other assistance, or you say, I really want to drill more into this one thing and learn more about this, your mentor will meet with you and do that.
So this is, I'm actually starting to see, is this also, do you have instructors as well, or are they kind of a self-paced, you have a series of video modules and the mentor will help guide you, or what does that look like?
Yep, so it's like the video module, and then the mentor is just serving almost like the instructor, like you said. That's just answering the questions and working with you on the assignments.
And then you mentioned having kind of like a career connector towards the end. Do you mind explaining or elaborating a little bit on what their role is?
Sure. So it's like a second mentor. Basically, you have the mentor for the coursework, and then you have your career search. They're the one that's tracking your activity for doing job outreach, because there's a certain number of interviews that you would like to get in a given week in order to get a job pretty quickly, like within hopefully 6 to 12 weeks. So, more, it's like sales, more meetings equal more signed deals. More interviews are going to equal more job offers, and we want to get you the best job offer possible. So we're going to help you get those interviews.
Yeah. Now, how long did it take you to get your job?
It was like a week and a half, 10 days.
Wow. That's quite impressive. So yeah, that's awesome. So did you like connect with your connector or like this mentor on a regular basis, and how involved were they in kind of like tweaking your cold outreach, or just telling you, or were they kind of just there to guide, what did that kind of look like?
All of the above. So your mentor can see you're tracking in a CRM like you're doing sales, your outreach activity for jobs. Your connector is tracking that, and they're making sure that you're hitting the right volume to get interviews. They're following up with you pretty much immediately after interviews, like, how did it go? Because I think the more fresh it is in your mind, the more you're going to be able to self-critique and figure out what you're going to do different next time, or what you liked, or how you felt that it went. And they're really just tracking that you're going to get a good amount of interviews. They're going to help you get them. If you say like, I just had an interview today, how do I send a follow-up email to stand out? Because a lot of people aren't doing that. Your connector is going to help you craft a follow-up email or make a personalized video and figure out the best way, in the most creative way to do that.
Yeah, I'm intrigued about this personalized video. I haven't heard about this much. What is it, and why? What's going on there?
So in sales, there is a ton of noise. There are competitors. There are like C-level decision makers. They're getting all of this outreach all the time. I see people on LinkedIn post screenshots of their email inbox, and it's like they've gotten, overnight a dozen emails from salespeople, but they all seem to start the same way. They go kind of the same way. They're boring. They go to the trash. People don't want to talk on the phone with you if you're not interesting, or you don't give them value within 10 or 15 seconds. So personalized videos are a really, really good way to stand out. I use them every day for something, for cold outreach. If it's a really good lead that I know will work well with our company. Also, saying something like, hey, I'm Hannah. I saw that you were looking for SDRs, pre-hired, has great SDRs. Wondered if you would like to take a look at some of our members or something like that. And another example would be for the career search, making a personalized video saying, hey, I just finished pre-hired training. I learned this, this, and this that could align with your team based off the job listing I saw. Would love to connect and see if I could be a fit for your team or make an impact with your team. So that is a way that, like, I've had so many people go, whoa, that is amazing, and it's different, and I've never gotten a video before.
Great. So there's also something that I wanted to ask about. Sorry, I had like a pre-list of questions here, and I can't seem to find this here. But regardless, what is something that, so there's obviously, like, going into a boot camp is like a fairly large investment of time, potentially money as well. What do you, and a lot of people obviously, like, since it is a huge investment, they probably have a lot of like insecurities about it, or some sort of like, not so great feelings. what about pre-hired specifically would you tell people to kind of ease that anxiety, to really make them a little bit more confident if this is really the right path for them?
One of my favorite things about pre-hired is that this is a lifetime membership, and we're aligning with your investment into your career. So you're investing your time on the front end, as are we. You're not investing any money on the front end. We're investing our time. And that's why we have such a strict assessment into the program typically, is because we're really wanting to make sure that you are someone who's really going to do really well in sales. So the fact that we're not taking anything from you in the front end while you're in the program until you get a job is our way of saying we are literally dedicated to helping you get a career in software sales, because we don't make any money until you do. And then we continue to be a partner in your career for life, because we're here if you lose your job, you hate your job and you quit it, like something happens, or you have an issue with the company and you say, I don't want to work here anymore, we'll help you with that. If you say, I deserve a promotion, we will help you with the promotion. We're going to mentor you. We're going to help you with that. And I think that makes it just so much different from other programs that I've seen.
Great. And so we do have about 10 minutes here. I want to make sure that anyone that's on this call definitely gets their answer or their questions answered. So if you do have any last lingering questions, definitely drop them in the chat or ask Hannah now. Now is a really great chance to do so. Other than that, we can continue on with the last question or two and kind of wrap things up here. I'm not, Hannah, were you able to see any questions that were kind of just lingering within the chat itself? Or do you think we covered? I think Josh and Suni have been really on their A game, or I mean Caleb as well. Is Josh also on the team as well?
Yes, Josh is answering questions for us here. That's what's distracting me. They're just like, they're flying in there. They're just going, but I'm happy to answer any questions in live here. If any questions.
Perfect. So at least from like a pre-hired specific aspect, if people are really, considering this as a potential investment that they want to make in terms of time and money and whatnot, what sorts of bits of advice would you give people, knowing now in hindsight, having gone through the experience yourself, how would you really help people get set up for success?
Setting yourself up for success, man. I think one thing that I have struggled with personally is coachability, which Josh Ruff probably wouldn't believe you when I say that, because I hear that he brags about me being just like coachable. But one huge thing that I took away from getting mental health treatment was like, I had to figure out that like I don't know everything and I have a lot to learn. And so I came to pre-hire just as a member and a staff member, just with a really open mind. And every day I have to remind myself, like, you don't know everything. Be a sponge, be a literal sponge, and just absorb sometimes you get really bad advice and it's pretty easy to tell. Like if you get bad advice, like when you book 2 demos on cold calling and then you get to another cold call and they're like, cold calling is dead. Like, why are you cold calling? It's like, well, obviously not, but you'll know if it's bad advice. And so all the good advice, just be a sponge.
Yeah, that's like the definition of what like the growth mindset is just, you're not always going to know everything, but someone could always teach you something, and being able to just be more right, more correct learning as you progress and grow is always a really great outlook to have on life. So yeah, definitely great advice there. And before I ask you my last question, unless I'm not seeing any questions, any lingering questions here, But I guess I'll go ahead and ask my last question. But before I do so, where can people find you?
Where can people find me?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. Where can people connect?
LinkedIn is, I think, really it. Yeah, LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there.
All right. So for my last question, this question is geared so that the folks on this call don't just hear the words that you say, but they are able to actually implement it in their lives. So what is one thing that you think people can do this week that'll help them move closer towards their goal of breaking into tech?
I thought about this one quite a bit because you mentioned it to me the other day, and I know you like to ask it. One thing that can get you closer. One thing I wish that I had done when I was considering doing pre-hired or any other program was more research just on, like, I did great research on the role and on pre-hired, and I was very happy with my decision, but I kind of wish I understood things like we talked about earlier, like the job market and how quotas and commissions and things like that work, how sales teams are structured. Like I got, to my first sales team and I didn't realize that, and this was a great company, but like things were wrong with their sales team. I had chose this company on my own, and my connector was like, I had another great offer with a huge company, and he was like, take the other one. And I chose the smaller company to work remote with my kids, which ended up not being a great idea because the only members of the sales team were 2 brand new SDRs, one like me, but they really needed like someone managing the SDRs who had sales experience and who could be mentors through building out that sales process. And that team didn't have that. And it was a lot harder than it should have been to be an SDR. So research, that's one thing you can do in the next week.
I love that. Definitely helps with making, well-informed decisions moving forward. And even with like a boot camp or a program like pre-hire, that's definitely something that you'd want to research, make sure that this is a good decision for you moving forward. But Hannah, I appreciate you spending some time with me and the community here. It doesn't look like we have any other questions, so I think that we'll just wrap it up a few minutes early. But I really appreciate, again, for you spending an hour here, and for the people that were on this call, you just invested an hour of your time towards your career, investing in yourself. So continue doing so. Do some more research. This is exactly what you should be doing, especially in this early stage. And career transitioning is such like a vulnerable time that it's always going to be really amazing to hear, first-hand experiences from people like Hannah. And we'll have more pre-hired folks come on as well, so you can hear it from them as well. All right. So Hannah, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming.
All right. Until next time, everyone. Good night.